Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Jed Goggin. This evening, we warmly welcome the family of Private Samuel Henry Luke, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection on behalf of family and by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. For those able to be seated, you may now do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Samuel Henry Luke. Known as Sam, he was born on the 17th of July, 1876 in St Mary's, New South Wales, to Robert Luke and Elizabeth Ann nee Morfitt. He was the fourth of their 8 children. Sam grew up on the family's farm at Mamree, but little else is known of his early life. His father, Robert, died in May 1887, leaving Elizabeth to raise their children, the youngest of whom, Emily, was only 1 year old. Elizabeth married John Delaney in March 1896 and would have a further 3 children. By the time his mother remarried, Sam was working as a labourer in the St Mary's district. Tragedy struck the family on the 10th of January 1914 when Sam, accompanied by his mother, his sister Emily, and 2 of her young children on a trip to St Mary's to register her 3-week-old daughter. On the return journey, as Sam drove the family's Saluki, Emily's dress caught fire and she was soon engulfed in flames. One of the children was rescued by Elizabeth and the other by Sam, who then went to his sister's aid. She suffered horrendous burns and died several hours later in hospital. It was later thought that a spark from the pipe Sam had been smoking had inadvertently caused the fire. Elizabeth died almost a year to the day after her daughter's death. By this time, the First World War had begun. In October 1915, a group of men who were keen to enlist left Gilgandra and began a march to Sydney to enlist. The marchers stopped at towns along the way where they held recruiting rallies shouting "Cooee" to draw men into joining the march. Known as the Cooees, their numbers began to swell. When the marchers reached Penrith, Sam joined them and enlisted for service at the next town, Ashfield, on the 11th of November 1915. When the march ended at Liverpool a day later, the marchers' numbers were counted as 263 men. Those who had been in from the start had covered 510 kilometres in the space of a month. Sam was allocated to the 15th Reinforcements to the 13th Battalion. After several months of training, he embarked from Sydney with other reinforcements on the 8th of March aboard the transport ship Star of England, bound for Egypt. After arriving in Egypt on the 11th of April, Sam was sent to the 4th Training Battalion, and at the end of the month, he transferred to the recently raised 4th Pioneer Battalion. The 4th Pioneer Battalion arrived in France in early June and was sent to the nursery sector to gain experience of the Western Front. Though the men were trained as infantry, they were employed in more of an engineer role, constructing trenches and strong points, light railways, and battlefield clearance tasks. When the 4th Australian Division was sent to the Somme in late July, the men of the 4th Pioneer Battalion received their baptism of fire. Despite not being in the front line, they experienced heavy German shell fire whilst engaged in digging and repairing trenches and rewiring defensive positions. During their time on the Western Front, the 4th Pioneers were never employed as infantry, but were right in the thick of the action as they worked to support the 4th Division. The unit saw service at Fleur in late 1916 and, for the following months, were heavily engaged building a light railway line. On the 21st of April 1917, Sam and his unit were working on the Decauville light railway when they came under German artillery fire. He and another member of the work party were killed instantly by shrapnel when a shell detonated near them. Sam was 40 years old. The 2 men were initially buried near where they fell, at Vulrocourt, but were later reinterred at Vol Hill Cemetery. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Samuel Luke, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.